Hi, this is Catherine, and here is the purple smoothie recipe that I make for my son, who's 20, has autism. Lots of people with autism have severe gastrointestinal issues, often requiring a gastroenterologist. My son started developing those sorts of symptoms maybe 10 plus years ago, and the referral to a gastro doctor was recommended, which I knew would be life-altering in terms of food choices and social opportunities for my son. So I decided to look into the matter, learned a lot about resistant starch, gut health, probiotics, adaptogens, fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, etc. And I developed this smoothie system, I suppose, for my son that has been, of course, tweaked over the years and years. And I'm happy to say he has been regular, with no gut issues, happy. I'll just share regular bowel movements, very healthy in that regard. And I think it's because of the smoothie that he has every day. I cannot stress enough, I'm showing you the recipe that I'm giving my son currently. But I do not think you should follow this recipe exactly. Obviously, all of our kids are different. And what works for my son will not necessarily work for your loved one. Also, the recipe has changed over the years depending on what's been going on with his system. You can hear him in the background. I'm just doing this on the fly in my living room, so bear with me. What you've been staring at for too long is about maybe a half a cup of frozen blueberry and 3/4 of a green banana. With regard to the blueberries, that's the purple produce I'm using today. Other days I use purple sweet potato or strawberries or even tomatoes or other berries. I try to mix it up, and I try to get organic as much as possible. You can hear my son in the background. With regard to the banana, that is about 3/4 of a green banana. I cut them into pieces like that and freeze them and put them in his smoothie. Green banana is a key resistant starch. I cannot stress enough. Start small, maybe add 1/4 of a piece of banana and see if that works for your loved one. What's good about banana is if your son or daughter has diarrhea, green banana specifically, the green banana helps that. However, too much in the other direction could cause constipation. So that's what I mean about starting small. Next, I add freshly grated organic ginger. I buy it and put it in the freezer and grate as needed. Here it is grated in the blender jar. Then I add 1 whole boiled organic egg. I boil a dozen at a time and keep them in this specially labeled carton, and add just 1, and here it is in the blender jar. Then I add fresh pineapple, about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick ring, including the core, which is very important because that is where most of the bromelain is. And bromelain is an enzyme that is very effective antioxidant and for pain. A lot of people with autism experience more pain than the rest of us, and I believe the bromelain helps with that. Having said that, I emphasize I'm not a doctor. I am a daughter of a doctor, but that doesn't count for anything. Most of all, I'm a mom. Most of what I'm showing you here is food-based. If you would like, of course, please consult your pediatrician or any medical professionals. I consider that what I am suggesting here is very safe. Everything is quote-unquote over-the-counter. There's no extreme diet supplement situation here, I don't think. However, I do stress I'm not a doctor, and please take this information in the spirit with which it is intended, and of course, do your own research. Also, another disclaimer, I guess. Forgive the lack of professionalism of this video. I'm actually doing this for a friend, a fellow autism mom. I was describing the smoothie to her the other day, and she said, please make a video. I'm visual, don't write it down, just make a video. So that's what I'm doing. And I hope anyone else who sees this takes that in the spirit with which it is intended. Okay, next I add chia seeds, about 1 to 2 teaspoons. The green juices and the green smoothie and the orange smoothie had different nuts and seeds, and I'll go over those in a different video. The purple smoothie that I make has just the chia seed. Also, you'll see the brand Azure Market here frequently. I like Azure Market a lot. Obviously, they are not sponsoring me in any way. I am not sponsored. As of today, October 9th, 2023. If that ever changes, I will put that in the description. One more thing about the chia seed. Start small with that too. Like I said, I do 1 to 2 teaspoons. Probably start with a half a teaspoon and work your way up from there. Next, I add mixed nuts. Here you'll see only walnuts because that's what I have right now. But I try to do a variety of nuts, except for Brazil nuts, which I reserve for the green and orange juices, just to have a good variety over the 3 days. After that, I add a 1/4 cup of organic potato starch, and I stress that that is a large amount, but that's what works for my son. Of course, start with a smaller amount, maybe a tablespoon or even a teaspoon, and increase or decrease as you see fit when you see how it's working for your loved one. Potato starch is another resistant starch, which once again helps with diarrhea or loose stool. A quick aside, if that sort of talk bothers you guys, my apologies, but that's just another thing that a lot of autism parents have to deal with, and even more so, people with autism have to deal with. And anything that helps that, I'm happy to share. So I think resistant starch is not really spoken of as much in the autism world as other things like probiotics or, gosh forbid, chelation. And resistant starch like green banana and potato starch, I think are milder and also effective. Once again, food-based, and especially if you start slow, like I continue to recommend, I think that's a good way to go. Okay, here is the first supplement I'll show you. It's a lactase supplement, which I set aside, and my son takes it orally before he drinks his juice. And I just want to talk about supplements a little bit. For the most part, and if it's not the case, I'll note it, all the supplements I recommend are recommended by Consumer Lab, which is like Consumer Reports, but for supplements. I personally think it's something the FDA should be doing, like they do for drugs. The same thing they do for drugs, they should be doing for supplements. They're not doing it, but Consumer Lab is, so I pay the subscription every year, and whenever I buy a supplement, before I buy it, I look on Consumer Lab. So the other supplements, I think just the Aspire supplements, which I'll show you later, those were not directly recommended by Consumer Lab. Not because they're bad. It's, just like Consumer Reports can't test every single product that exists on Earth. Neither can Consumer Lab. But anyway, I still highly recommend Aspire supplements, and I'll get to those later. Of course, do your own research. Be skeptical but not cynical, I heard someone say, and I like that. And yeah, here's just what I recommend and what has worked for my son. With regard to the lactase supplement, only give this to your loved one if they are lactose intolerant. And you'll see that this is just a brand from Walmart. I really like that the Consumer Lab recommended lactase supplement is an affordable one. A lot of the supplements they recommend are affordable, and you would be surprised how some of the sort of hip, expensive brands are not always the best and not always recommended. So keep that in mind. I'll put links to everything I recommend in the description. Once again, I am not sponsored by anyone. As of today, October 9th, 2023. Next, I also set aside for my son to take whole with his juice an allergy medicine over the counter. I don't think that was recommended specifically by Consumer Lab, but it's been an effective allergy medication my son has taken for forever, and it has worked for him. Next, I add the Aspire multivitamin to his juice directly. They come in caplets, and I open them up and pop them in the blender. And Aspire is, like I said, a brand that has not been specifically recommended by Consumer Lab, but my husband found the link one day and he sent it to me, and I looked at it, and basically the guy who invented the Aspire supplement was doing what I've been doing with a lot more pain and care than just buying the supplement. They are not inexpensive. They're quite expensive. I think they're worth it. They have a lot of the ingredients that you read up on, especially adaptogens. I forget exactly, but of course I'll provide the link in the website. I used to add dried mixed mushrooms, which were not always easy to find, to my son's smoothie. And they also left a strange taste, which he just had to get used to. But Now with the Aspire multivitamin, that takes care of that. I don't have to add the separate dried mushrooms anymore. Next, I add a fish oil supplement. We do this every other day. That has worked for our son versus every day. Also, you'll note that the brand is an affordable Walmart brand, and it was recommended by Consumer Lab, and I like that, once again, when the affordable brand is also the recommended one. Next, I add 1 capsule of Shift Digestive Advantage, 1 capsule of Align Probiotic, and 2 capsules of the Aspire Probiotic. The directions say 3, but I know they used to say take 2. And I've been giving my son 2, not 3, and his system has been fine. They're very expensive, so I'm happy to do 2 instead of 3 at a time. All 3 of those probiotics are in capsules, and I do just pop them open and dump the powder into the blender. Next, I add a dropper full of this Bluebird CBD oil. Once again, recommended. Also, the CBD oil that we use is THC free. I will say that other Consumer Lab recommended CBD oils we've tried, I think they did have some THC in them, even if it said it was pure CBD based on the effect they had on my son. So if you're not familiar with that, you can just Google THC, CBD, and so on. Anyway, I found the Bluebird brand that you see to be the best in terms of calming without having the sort of overly calming effects of THC. I think the Bluebird brand for my son is the best one. Next, I add this PGX supplement. It's in a capsule, which I dump into his juice. I pour out the capsule. And PGX, this was not specifically recommended, but it's a soluble fiber and a resistant starch. The bottle says to take 2 to 4, but I just put 1 in my son's juice, and that seems to do the trick. Next, I add maybe a tablespoon of local honey. My apologies, the jar is sideways there. I'm not sure why. But anyway, you'll see that that's the honey that's local for us. But if you can find local honey, get that. I know the benefits of local honey have been disputed recently. However, I respectfully disagree. Once I started giving my son local honey, his allergy symptoms, that combined with taking allergy medication, seemed to do the trick. Before the honey, he was on the allergy medication, and that helped some, but adding the honey to the allergy med seemed to really do the trick. Next, I add a vitamin C capsule. This brand is recommended. Many brands are recommended. Vitamin C is very affordable, and just 1 500 milligram capsule. Next, I add 2 tablespoons of acacia fiber. My apologies for the sideways, but either Whole Foods or this Heather's brand, they both work equally well. This was not specifically recommended by Consumer Lab, but I did research and have quote-unquote tested, and these 2 brands of acacia work really well. I caution against using other brands because I have found that the wrong brand of Acacia can have the opposite effect. For example, if you're using Acacia to help prevent diarrhea, the wrong brand of Acacia can cause diarrhea. That is what had happened with my son. So, anyway. Also, 2 tablespoons of Acacia is a lot. For the longest time, I gave my son just 1 tablespoon, which is also a lot. You should definitely start small. Maybe start with a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon and work your way up. See what amount is the right amount for your loved one. Next, I add vitamin D. I use these drops. Once again, apologies for the sideways. And I do up to 5 drops per day, which is 500 IUs of vitamin D. And I do that based on how much sun he has had. For example, if I know he has had at least 20 minutes of good, direct sunlight that day, I don't give him any vitamin D. And if I know he got a little bit of sun, just 1 or 2 drops, so on. Next, I add about 1.5 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, which is good for blood sugar and weight management. It is an acid, so once again, start small. This is the Target brand, and it was recommended by Consumer Lab. Last but not least, I add these concentrates liquid minerals for electrolytes, and then I add water. By the way, the concentrate's not specifically recommended, but just trace minerals. I add water, mix it together, taste it. If it doesn't seem to taste great, I'll add a packet of stevia like you see here, or sometimes 1 to 2 teaspoons of sugar, but then that's it. And I let my son take his time drinking it. Sometimes, if he thinks it tastes great, he'll finish it in 15 minutes. Otherwise, sometimes it'll take up to an hour. If he really didn't like it, maybe sometimes like a quarter of it is left at the bottom of the jar, and that's okay. I just let him stop drinking it then. But like I said, I think it has helped him a lot. And yeah, that's it. Okay, thanks. Have a good day.